Hello everyone, my name is T Hunter. If this is your first time coming to my channel, welcome. If you are a returning viewer, welcome back. So let's just get right into today's video. We are in season 14 of Married at First Sight. They have chosen the lovely city of Boston. So I'm just going to give first impressions. At this point, all the weddings have happened. The receptions have finished. The first night as newlyweds has been completed as well. And as of last week, the couples are now on their honeymoon in Puerto Rico. So first impressions, I think I will start with Noy and Steve. So Noy is pretty quiet. She values her family. And what I love most about her is she doesn't have this unrealistic vision of marriage and love. She has a very hopeful attitude that she can have a lasting marriage because that's what she has seen with her parents. It makes a difference when you have that example right before you. So if that is something that you would wish to attain, you have it right there. It doesn't necessarily mean that you have to have a marriage that mirrors that of your parents, but it's cool to see that if you do aspire to be in a loving marriage, you've been able to see that with your parents. So she's gone through a lot. She has seen her parents go through a lot together and survive. She and her siblings, they are in a good space now, but they definitely had some trying times during her childhood. And she definitely values stability, which is so necessary these days. There are so many values and traits that you can search for in a spouse, but if you're not looking for those hardcore, heavy-hitting morals and values, such as, shared morals, stability, compassion, emotional maturity, if you're not looking for those, then you're pretty much going to get someone who can only meet you at a surface level. And beauty does fade. Eventually, you can't just stare at each other for the rest of your lives. You need to be able to have a conversation, and you need to be able to, have some type of middle ground. Or how are you communicating with each other when you don't see eye to eye? So all in all, stability is a huge value for Noy. And I pray that she gets it in this marriage with Steve. So Steve, her spouse, he values family as well. And one of the things that he noted in his matchmaking interview was that his grandparents had an arranged marriage, and they kept the wedding vow till death do us part. So he definitely admires that. His parents are also still married, and he is the last of his siblings to get married. So marriage is all around him. Thriving marriages, with realistic expectations. And that's one of his goals. He's at the age where he says, I want to get married because I want to have a wife and I want to have a family. So at this point in his life, he's saying, what, it hasn't happened for me yet. I have taken a 4-month road trip after being laid off during a pandemic. And let me just pause right there. Sometimes we have this idea of, well, if you don't have a corporate job, you're just a bum or you're not aspiring to do anything with your life. It speaks volumes that Steve experienced the layoff and he was able to not only take a 4-month road trip, but he was able to sustain himself during that time period. So while he is between jobs, I don't see Steve as someone who is going to have a difficult time attaining another job. Or if he should decide to go into business for himself and pursue the entrepreneurial route. I definitely believe that Steve has what it takes to be successful, whether he opts for another corporate job or if he opts to work for himself and be independent. I would say the only worry that I have as far as him and Noy is because her value is stability. Sometimes we as women might see a man who is in between jobs as someone who might be unstable. So should she have any concerns, any fears around stability and what life is going to look like while he is between jobs or whatever direction he's going to take in order to be gainfully employed, I hope that he can cater to that emotional need, that he can be supportive, he can listen, and he can, just meet her where she is instead of taking offense to it or seeing it as, well, she doesn't trust me to lead the family. She doesn't trust me to cover and protect her as her husband simply because I'm not employed. So I just really hope that if they ever have any conversations about concerns around finances and employment, that they can, be gentle and be gracious toward each other and hear each other out. So Steve and Noy, I like them a lot already. They are very compassionate and very understanding and very open to each other's cultures. Noy, she did have a traditional wedding dress. And then after the wedding was over, going into the ceremony, she said, this is part of my culture. So I have on, a traditional, wedding gown that goes more so, I have a gown that is more so in line with my culture and my values and my background. And it was, I don't want to mislabel the clothing garment that she gave Steve. So I'm probably going to look it up and then maybe like pop the description somewhere in here. But she had a garment for him and it goes across like, his shoulders. She said, "Is it okay if I put this on you?" He's like, "Yeah, absolutely, totally." So I really admired that about him, that while he is not necessarily from the same ethnicity and culture as her, he wanted her to feel comfortable with incorporating her cultural values into the wedding. So that's awesome too. When you have someone where they don't have to agree with your experience to validate it and to make room and to make space for it. So I think that's awesome that he has this. He gives me the impression of someone who is just going to be open-minded, someone who is going to be self-aware of how he shows up, and someone who's going to give other people space to be themselves. So I admire that about Steve already, and I'm looking forward to seeing how much fun they have on this honeymoon. Okay, so moving forward to the next couple. Let's go with Jasmina and Michael. Okay, so Jasmina is seen as Mrs. No Nonsense. She is pragmatic. What I love about Jasmina is when I have seen her in the after party special for Married at First Sight, she is not someone that goes back and forth and starts to argue to the point where things get loud and dramatic. I've noticed her approach when she is discussing a difficult topic is she will state the facts, state her experience of it, whatever that interaction was, and then she lets it marinate. So she's not going to be yelling. She's not going to be over talking you. I don't think that she doesn't strike me as the type of woman who's going to allow you to overtalk her. She's going to let you get your point out and then she'll deliver hers. And if you're still not vibing, if you're still not on the same page, well, I said what I said, and respectfully, I'm going to be quiet now. So I admire that about her. And I think that could definitely be a great tactic, especially as she gets to know her husband, Michael. So Michael has said that, he sometimes struggles with being vulnerable and opening up. So I just really hope that when challenges come up and an opportunity to be vulnerable presents itself, that Michael will feel safe and he will feel comfortable to do so with Jasmina, because I have already seen how she handles conflict, where she's more so approaching the situation with, I want to remain positive. I want to remain respectful. I want to also be respected. So there's just certain qualities of interactions that I just do not want to have with people, especially as I'm getting to know them. Because, sometimes if you let people take you there, things can get downright ignorant and ugly. And Jasmina strikes me as the type that just does not want to entertain that. It just seems like it exhausts her. So should they ever have, disagreements or they're struggling to see where the other is coming from, I just really hope that Michael can see that quality in Jasmina, where she's going to listen and she is also going to deliver her points in a way that can be understood, and she's going to be respectful of you, even if she disagrees and has a little bit of a difficult time understanding where you're coming from. One thing that I really loved about Michael in last week's episode, he had mentioned, there's going to be conflict in relationships, not just romantic, but also between friends and especially between strangers. He made such an awesome point when he said, because I don't know you, I could do something that crosses a boundary. And because I don't know you, I don't know that that's a boundary violation. So as I'm navigating how to respect your boundaries, therein lies conflict as I'm learning you. And Jasmina, once again, she said, I want to be a positive person. That's not the energy that I want to approach a situation with, where I'm just expecting a conflict. I could understand her point. But I think Michael did a very good job explaining that conflict doesn't necessarily have to be a negative, hostile confrontation. It can simply be, I did something that you did not like. And because I do not know you, I was unaware that this was a boundary violation. So here's a conflict that we both need to navigate as we learn each other. So kudos to Michael for that. That was very insightful. And I think it was an excellent way to break down that whether you approach a situation with positive or negative energy or negative mindset or positive mindset, hopeful, whatever it is, as you're getting to know someone, the conflict is going to be there because you don't know each other. And so you don't know what makes each other tick just yet. So you don't know which buttons to avoid. So you might just be pressing buttons that you wouldn't press years down the road. So, but I do enjoy this couple. They're gorgeous to me. They seem very level-headed. So we'll see how this pans out as they continue to get to know each other, as well as how they interact with the other couples this season. Okay, moving on to Chris and Alyssa. I feel like every season, one of the spouses, be it male or female, gets matched with someone who is so rigid in their ideas of what it will take for them to be attracted to their spouse that they don't give them a fair and fighting chance. They don't get to know the personality because they don't like the packaging. And in one of the earlier seasons, Pastor Cal was in the room with the husbands who had applied to the show. So this is like the mass crowd of men and women. So he was in a room with the men and he said, how many of you like supermodels? And quite a few guys were cheering and yeah, woo. And he said, great. So we're not going to match you with a supermodel. We're going to match you with a woman who we believe, realistically matches you. As far as your personality, your goals, your morals, your hopes for a marriage. That's the type of woman we're going to match you with. Now, we're not saying by any means that because she's not a supermodel, she's not going to be attractive. However, my idea of what's attractive differs from somebody else's, and that's fine. But Alyssa is giving me this impression that if things are not going to go her way, then it's going to be really hard for her to have fun and find joy in the experience and make the best of it. It's okay to set boundaries and say what you will and will not tolerate and outline the things that you do, wish to see in your marriage. However, as soon as she saw Chris at the altar, I was surprised that she went through with it. Because the way that she treated him after the wedding ceremony, she didn't want to get close to him for pictures. She didn't even spend the wedding night with him in the same room. Like she said, I'm not comfortable spending the night with a stranger. But you just married him? Like I'm confused. How does this work? You're okay with taking vows to this stranger, but you don't want to spend the night with him. Ultimately, what she said was, there were some things that I heard and that I did not like. So therefore, I'm not comfortable spending the night with you. And the thing that she heard was his groomsmen and some of his friends had said, Chris likes to teach people new things. And so if he ever comes across condescending, it's more so coming from a place of, oh, I can teach this person something new. And then he gets excited as he has those opportunities. And later on with the after party show, Alyssa did comment, I was in a relationship where I dealt with someone who was very condescending, and I can only imagine what impact that had on her mentally, emotionally. So she drew a hard line in the sand based on what his friend said, not having an interaction where he was condescending. She just said in her head, okay, well, if you're describing Chris as condescending, then he's gonna be a condescending jerk, and I just don't want to engage with someone like that. And so he was pretty much through before they even started. In her mind, it's through before we start. So I just really feel bad for Chris because he's trying to get to know Alyssa in a way that doesn't make her uncomfortable. He's trying to meet her emotional needs for comfort and safety. So, okay, we can spend the first night away from each other. And my heart broke when he said, I'm sorry that, things did not go the way that you had hoped, but I want you to know that I had a really good day today. In reference to their wedding day. I was thinking, oh, this is so sad. This is so sad. So I just hope that as Chris and Alyssa continue through this season, something that he had mentioned in the matchmaking special was sometimes he just settles for what's good enough. So, okay, I hope he doesn't see it as it's good enough that she married me, despite the fact that she's not spending the night with me in the honeymoon suite after our wedding ceremony. So I hope that he will outline what he wants in love and in marriage instead of just accepting, well, this is good enough. I can accept this. I can take this. So we'll see. Okay, moving on to the next couple, Olajuwon and Katina. So let's see. Olajuwon, so he's the ex-Playboy, and watching the footage from the bachelor party, the men's bachelor party, I was like, yikes. And he even said, when questioned by Katina's loved ones at the brunch the following day after their wedding, he had said, well, I signed up for this process because I wanted something different. And I was thinking, so you're not okay with the way that your dating life and love life have been going so far. So trying something different is let's get married, as opposed to, like maybe I should assess the bait that I'm putting out there if I'm attracting the wrong ones. I don't know. That's just my thoughts. So I really hope that the bachelor party antics and his past life are really something that he's ready to leave in the past, because he seemed to be having a hard time understanding, when you are married, you have someone who is a part of you, like you are a unit, you are one now. So the way that you behave when you're single might be a little bit difficult to bring that into the marriage and stay married. He seems very attracted to Katina. He was crying at the altar, and he, after the ceremony, they were taking pictures. He's like, I just can't stop looking at you. You're so beautiful. And so I like the fact that he seems, pretty endearing towards her, and that he wants to be married to her, is attracted to her and attracted to the idea of getting to know her better. So we will definitely see how this pans out, the rest of the season, with him making this huge leap from being an ex-Playboy to now being the husband of one wife. I'm just going to be settling down with one woman. It's very possible. We saw Woody do it. Woody had said, he was ready to get married, and his friends and family were a little bit skeptical in season 11 because they thought, he's not really ready. Sometimes people can be living a lifestyle that goes against our ideas of what does ready for marriage look like. And because that person hasn't voiced to us, I don't really like the single life. I don't really like living like a bachelor. Because they don't voice that, sometimes we doubt if they're really ready to move away from that. So Woody from season 11 showed that he was ready to move away from that, settle down with one woman, commit to one person, and make it last. And it is working. So I definitely do have hope for Olajuwon. We'll definitely see. So as far as Katina is concerned, she is the former party girl. So she understands the nightlife, going out, not coming home until like 5 a.m., those marathon type of parties. And she's also suffered a lot of heartbreak in her long-term relationships. She mentioned being in a relationship that was somewhere around 8 to 9 years, and this man had another woman that she did not know about. So because Olajuwon described himself as being an ex-playboy, I really hope that he does not hurt Katina. And I also hope that if Olajuwon starts to show red flags, that Katina doesn't shut down. I hope that she will call those concerns out so that they can talk through them and make changes. Because Katina she's not playing games. She's ready to be married and she's ready to settle down and be committed to one person and have them be committed to her as well. So I just hope that she is willing to have those difficult, vulnerable conversations and tell Olajuwon, if you're going to be with me, this is how I describe safety. This is how I describe care. This is how I describe, comfort. So you got to be open and honest with me. And I hope that she will do that and just, set those boundaries really early on. Like, okay, that was your past. You're not really proud of how you used to treat women in the past. If you're saying you're ready to treat me differently, like, let's be ready to have those conversations around what different is going to look like for us. So, finally, our last couple, Lindsay and Mark. So, Mark, he is very committed to this process. He actually signed up for Married at First Sight when they were in Boston for season 6. He didn't make the cut then, but he was actually successfully matched this time around. So not Mike. So Mark has, mentioned wanting to have a happy and thriving marriage, wanting to have, a marriage and a family where they are wearing like matching pajamas, around like Christmas time, around the fireplace. He is very nurturing. He has an ailing mother and grandmother who are both in assisted living programs. His father, unfortunately, is deceased. And because his mother and grandmother are ill, they were not able to attend the wedding. So I know that it means a lot to Mark to have a wife that's going to stand by him because, his experience of family, I'm sure, it has been great, but the circle of life. He wants someone by his side. He's ready for marriage. He wants to have a family of his own, have someone to share this life with. So he is Mr. Wicked committed, and I'm excited to see how things pan out with him and his wife Lindsay. So Lindsay is definitely the wild card. She has a very big personality. And in her matchmaking special, she has suffered quite a few losses. Not in so much in the sense of death, but her parents are divorced. They got divorced 4 years ago. And she noted that she has not spoken to her mother in 3 years. I think she had said her mother will not even do phone calls with her. Like it might just be text messages and emails. So I don't know what that communication looks like, but that's got to be rough for your own mother to not, reach out, like call you. And her mother as well, did not attend on the wedding day. She had actually sent an email to a third party to tell Lindsay, like, yeah, I'm not going to be there. And I can imagine how difficult that was because while, the focal point of the wedding day is that, you do make it down the aisle and you exchange vows with your spouse. I couldn't imagine not having my mother there and she's alive and choosing not to. Like there's no obstacle. She's just, no, I'm not coming to your wedding. That's heartbreaking. Um, so like I said, Lindsay has a very big personality. She has a lot of energy. She even admitted that some of her friends have said, when I first met you, I didn't know about you. Like I was leery about you. But as I got to know you, you're cool. And what that says to me is Lindsay Lindsay gives me the impression of someone who believes that they have to be on all of the time. Um, it's like they take on this performance mindset. So you're in this performer role instead of I can just relax and I can just chill. I can be quiet if I choose to be quiet. I can speak when I choose to speak. I can engage when I want to, or just sit back and observe. And I don't know that Lindsay knows how to do that. And one of the things that I took a mental note was her father had even said when he found out that she was being matched at leading up to the wedding day, you have to be careful with your words. Sometimes you say things and they're not filtered. Like you're not thinking them through at all. You just say things, there's no filter. And he even mentioned, you do that a lot with your mother. So dad is giving, little nuggets of insight because he knows her. That's his daughter. That's his baby girl. So he knows what she's capable of. Um, as far as what she can do that may either draw people to her or repel them from her when it comes to how she engages people. So my hopes for Lindsay are that she can discover a safe place, be it in God or wherever she needs to find it if she doesn't believe in God, where she can just be safe and she can just be. Like she doesn't have to be on because that seems very exhausting. And oftentimes I've noticed that people that wear the biggest smiles sometimes have the deepest hurts. And sometimes the people who really desperately need love sometimes are the hardest to get along with and the hardest to extend love and grace to. So I'm really hoping that, Mark will be able to see that and whatever's going on for Lindsay, whether it's aired or if it's just a conversation that the experts have with her off camera, I really hope that they dig into that because I believe that she can be a nurturing and doting wife. And I believe that she is worthy of love and she is worthy of protection and she's worthy of having a safe space, in her marriage as well as in her relationships. And I hope that she can also give that in return. Not just someone who needs to be catered to, but someone who knows how to respond to other people's emotional needs. Speaking of this first impressions episode that I'm doing here, it wouldn't be complete if I did not address the conflict between Olajuwon and Lindsay. So Olajuwon and Lindsay, they both have big personalities. And when you have two people in a room where their personalities are very similar, they're going to clash at some point or another, especially if neither one of them takes note. Like, hey, they have a big personality and so do I. I like to talk a lot and so do they, or whatever that common trait is that could cause friction. And say, okay, mental note, maybe I might, dial it back just a little bit. And I don't have to get the last word and I don't have to be doing the most and I don't have to always be on because that's going to cause a problem with that person because we're too much alike. So, as I said, the weddings and the receptions are over. We are now, the spouses have met their in-laws for brunch, lunch, what have you, and they are going to Puerto Rico for their honeymoon. So, it seems like a good time. We're going to get on this flight. Each couple is, sitting in their designated seats and they're going to have time to rest, sleep, talk to each other, get to know each other, what have you, whatever their hearts desire as they travel. And once they get to Puerto Rico and they're getting the cast onto the shuttle to go to the hotel resort, we noticed that Lindsay and Mark are not in the same shuttle as the rest of the castmates. And I'm wondering, okay, what's happening? So while en route to Puerto Rico from Boston, that is approximately a 4-hour flight, Lindsay asks Olajuwon, hey, do you speak Spanish? And he says, a little bit, but not fluently. So I'm going to be speaking English because that's the language that I'm most comfortable with. No problem, right? Wrong. Lindsay tells him, well, you should speak Spanish because you're in their land. Immediately, Olajuwon is trying to shut it down. You are not my mother. Worry about you and your husband. We're all adults. We can do what we want to do. You're not going to tell me which language to speak. That should be the end of it, right? No. Lindsay keeps poking and poking and poking. And by the time they're getting off the flight, Lindsay says, Olajuwon is puffing his chest and he's posturing aggressively at me. And she's in her confessional and she's crying and she's clearly triggered and saying, his response to her and the gestures that he's making are putting her in a headspace where she's feeling like, okay, this isn't safe. This is dangerous. But then Katina says she overheard Lindsay say, I want to fight him, in reference to Olajuwon because of that whole interaction. And Katina turns and says, who are you talking about? Fighting. So now we have Mark and Lindsay in one shuttle and we have the remaining castmates in another. And the way that O tells the story, he gives so much context. You're annoying me. You will not leave me alone. And because we're on a plane, I can only imagine how upsetting that is. You can't get away from the person that is agitating you. And to make matters even better, Mark and Lindsay were sitting right behind Olajuwon and Katina. So he really could not escape if he wanted to. And when you're triggered past your limit and you have no escape, who's to say how any one of us would respond? But sadly, Lindsay's interpretation of the situation, this is nothing new under the sun. Last weekend, I binge watched the series Women of the Movement. And this particular series focused on the Emmett Till tragedy and the life and legacy and his mother, Mamie Till Mobley, and how she fought to make sure that her son's legacy would not be one just marked by, a tragedy of him being a martyr. The reason I bring this up is because Lindsay painted this picture of Olajuwon being this aggressive man that wanted to fight her as a woman. And sadly, Carolyn Bryant Donham, she portrayed Emmett to be, this disrespectful, fresh mouth, young kid who, just wouldn't respect her space and wouldn't stay in his place, as a young Black male in the South. There was a certain set of rules. Looking at a white woman or a white man in their face, you just didn't do that. Interacting with them, you just didn't do it. And because he did it, the picture that she painted of him was like, oh, like I'm scared of him now. And sadly, Lindsay did the same thing. Her interpretation was, he's scary, he's aggressive, I'm in danger, I'm scared, I don't feel safe. And so now Olajuwon is this villain who's willing to fight women. Definitely do not think that that was fair. And I also don't believe that it happened, because once they got to the resort and they all checked into their rooms, the couples minus Lindsay went down to the beach to just, relax, hang out, decompress from the flight, have some drinks, socialize with each other. Mark comes down after advising Lindsay, hey, you're still upset. Go ahead, take a breather, take a shower. I'll come back and check on you in a minute. He comes down to the couples and says, I want to apologize for my team's actions. And basically just wanting to, bury the hatchet and basically saying, like, can we be cool? And Olajuwon said, you know what? Absolutely. It's fine. And Mark even said, would you like an apology from my wife? And he said, you know what? No, she doesn't have to apologize. It's good. We'll squash it. It's fine. And I really admire Mark for that because he catered to his wife's needs. He made sure that she felt safe. But then he also is willing to hold her accountable. In the after party, when they asked Olajuwon and Mark and Alyssa what their experience of that interaction was, Mark said, yeah, she was poking, and Olajuwon gave her multiple outs. So there were plenty of times where she could have just disengaged from the conversation. And Olajuwon would have been fine had she done that. But because Lindsay did not take the outs, she then supposedly saw this side of Olajuwon that made her feel unsafe. And if Olajuwon did pose as a threat, and if he did posture aggressively, I'm thinking to myself, okay, Mark is not that big of a dude, but he's a husband. So I'm sure, he's thinking, I'm going to protect my wife. I'm not going to let a man speak to or even posture in a way that makes my wife feel unsafe. So if Olajuwon did in fact do all of those things, why would Mark then come and apologize to him and the rest of the group? That's my only question. So it just goes to show that when we are triggered and our adrenaline is pumping, it's very possible for us to forget certain details. And sometimes the way that we tell stories when we are triggered versus when we are calm, you might get different versions. I did notice, though, with the rest of the castmates, Olajuwon, Mark, and even Alyssa and Katina, their stories were the same across the board. Lindsay's was the only outlier. So I'm not going to invalidate her experience, but what I will say is this. We have to be so careful of how we describe interactions with people when we are triggered, because there are certain buzzwords. I felt unsafe. He was aggressive. I think they're crazy. I'm in danger. Once you put that label out there, this interaction is forever characterized by those words now. So now there's a possibility that people will see Olajuwon as someone who can pop off on a woman when he wants to. And we don't know that because we're not there. We're not in Olajuwon's head. We don't know. But we will definitely see how things pan out the rest of the season. And I am so ready to see what the experts' take on this specific interaction will be. So I'm definitely watching next week. Well, that concludes my thoughts and first impressions. If you have enjoyed this video, please feel free to give it a like, subscribe to my channel for more content, and hit that bell so that you never miss a notification. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye, guys.